Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for y'all. So today we're going to be taking yet another look at our Sky Striker deck. As of course we got very recently within the last month the Sky Striker Mobilize Linkage, which in my opinion definitely makes the deck feel a lot more complete. Now it feels like, not that controlling down the opponent before wasn't a viable strategy, but we actually have options beyond that. And not just beyond that in the form of the OTK, but also, in addition to that, the linkage helps us with that control package by allowing us to more consistently go into our Sky Striker Link monsters without having to open Raye or the singular Roze every single time. The singular Roze is actually a relatively new update. In the past, have been typically playing with two Rozes. Before, I typically did that just to have more ways to go into our Sky Striker links a little bit more consistently. I've also liked occasionally in the past, another copy of Area Zero and or Terraforming as well. But now that we have 3 linkage, we have a lot more consistent access to those extra deck monsters, so I think that we can get away with just the one Roze. I feel like we're going to be fine without the extra copy there. Another card I think we're going to be honestly pretty fine without is the Sky Striker, or the H.A.M.P. I did take that out of the deck. That one I swapped out for a third Lightning Storm, or a second Lightning Storm rather. The second Roze went out for a third Veiler, but I wanted to try 2 Lightning Storm because this build has an emphasis on not only going second, but also OTKing. I feel like having the Lightning Storm to be able to wipe out my opponent's monsters, potentially, a lot of people are summoning in defense mode, which I typically tend to do as well if the stats are fairly comparable, specifically to avoid certain cards like Lightning Storm. But there are still times when Lightning Storm is very good for wiping out the opponent's back row as well. I think the H.A.M.P. might actually end up coming back in the deck, although it might not necessarily be the second Lightning Storm that's going out for it. It probably will be, though. I do like that the H.A.M.P. is searchable. Having a searchable kaiju is very nice. It is a little, there have been 1 or 2 occasions where needing to have a Sky Striker Ace specifically on the board to summon it for its kaiju, properties. There have been a couple of times where that's also kind of come up and kind of bit me in the ass. So I'm like, but of course, Lightning Storm is a drawback of, well, what if you draw it if you have, face-up cards on the field? So I think both cards have their pros and cons. I'm going to keep testing various ratios to see what I like, but I do think both are valid. I think H.A.M.P. is a fine card, and again, I'm thinking of putting it back in, but I also think it's fine to play. I don't think it's necessary, personally. So let's see. Otherwise, the build hasn't really changed too much, including in some of the different tech choices that I'm playing in terms of disruption. Ghost Belle, of course, we all know how good this card in the format is now with Mathmech running around. Mathmech obviously playing this card themselves as well in order to stop themselves from getting Callby'd, DD-Crow'd, etc. But this card is, of course, useful against them, as it can stop their Super Factorial. It stops Branded in red. The only card, or the only deck that this isn't super duper good against is Sword Soul, but there's some niche applications against that deck too. The exact same can honestly be said for the other tech disruption I've been really, really liking here, which is Droll and Lockbird. Can say the exact same thing, actually. Very good against Mathmech, especially if you can get them off the Small World or Signet Mining before they even start their plays. It's very good against Branded Despia. Again, especially if they start with Fright for Patchwork or Allure before they start their main plays. But Sword Soul Tenny is the one deck where this is not super great. I don't know, if they emergence for Moye, then it's good, because then, they don't get their Chi Shao Search or Moye draw, but that's just about the only situation in which you really want Droll and Lockbird against Sword Soul. But overall, I think it's very, very good against the format. It's very good against the mirror match as well. Of course, Sky Striker does its fair share of searching. Oh, and of course, Runic. How could I forget Runic? Big, bad, scary Runic. Of course, Droll and Lockbird is very good against that, being able to stop, their search for Fountain, and then they can't Fountain. And then Belle can also stop Fountain, because Fountain puts cards from the graveyard back into the deck. So, as a result, you can stop them with the Ghost Belle effect, because that's not actually a cost, which in the past I've kind of complained about as it should be a cost, and maybe it should, but I guess, the fact that it's not a cost, allowing Ghost Belle to stop it is a bit of a pro in that regard. And then, of course, Nibiru. I did actually, not heavily, but I sort of debated on putting a second Nibiru in instead of a third Effect Veiler, but I don't necessarily think you need 2 Nibiru in a 40-card deck. That is to say, though, Nibiru is a very good card in this format, as I've said a lot lately. So if you can slot it in, you should. I think pretty much every deck that's playing 3 Maxx should be playing a Nibiru as well right now. And yeah, this is one of those decks where like maybe we had room for a second copy, but like I think ultimately one is good enough for the time being. Alright, that's pretty much everything I want to talk about as far as the deck goes, so as always as ever, let's break it down card by card and then take a look at some games. We're playing 3 Effect Veiler, 2 Droll and Lockbird, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Ghost Belle and Haunted Mansion, 3 Sky Striker Ace Raye, 1 Sky Striker Ace Roze, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Harpie's Feather Duster, 1 Reinforcement of the Army, 2 Sky Striker Mobilize Engage, 1 Sky Striker Maneuver Afterburners, 2 Lightning Storm, 1 Sky Striker Airspace Area 0, 1 Sky Striker Mecha Modules Multirole, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Sky Striker Mecha Hornet Drones, 3 Sky Striker Mecha Widow Anchor, 1 Sky Striker Mecha Shark Cannon, 3 Sky Striker Mobilize Linkage, and 3 Infinite Impermanence. It's going to round out the main deck. For the extra deck, we've got 2 Sky Striker Ace Kagari, 3 Sky Striker Ace Shizuku, 3 Sky Striker Ace Hayate, 1 Sky Striker Ace Kaina, 1 Sky Striker Ace Zeke, 1 Lynne the Light Charmer Lustrous, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Selene Queen of the Master Magicians, and then finally, of course, 1 Access Code Talker. So there is our list. Now let's take a look at some of these games. Alright, so for this first duel, we're going to be playing up against an Endymion. It's like an Endymion Zephyra 60 card pendulum kind of mishmash situation going on here. So we are, of course, going second as we opt to do whenever possible. Opening hand's looking pretty good here. Got the Ash Blossom and the Lightning Storm, so that's pretty nice. I'm going to immediately use the Ash Blossom on this Mythical Beast Master Cerberus here to stop them from adding another Mythical Beast card. Mainly, I'm looking to avoid them getting the Jackal King. The card is very, very annoying, and it's my least favorite part of playing against this style of Pendulum deck. Or so I thought until they dropped a Secret Village of the Spellcasters, so it's like, this is the ultimate anti-Sky Striker tech. Like, you know, of course with this in play, we're not going to be able to use any of our spell cards, which is a huge problem. But, you know, at the same time, it's only good while they have a Spellcaster monster in play, otherwise they don't get to use spell cards. And even though they do get their Jackal King, which I was very much hoping didn't come out, fortunately for me, they actually summoned it in defense mode. And this is ultimately, I think, going to be the only reason I'm able to have something that even resembles a chance in this duel. So, thank God this monster actually came out onto the board in defense mode, because now I can just slap this Raye on the board, smack that Jackal King, get it out of here, and then of course I'm going to use Raye's effect during the battle phase to tag into Hayate. Now I'm going to use Hayate's effect to send off the Multirole, because I already have the Engage in hand. Now, there is something I do still have to be mindful of, and that is, of course, the fact that my opponent does still have the Secret Village of the Spellcasters and, you know, a Pendulum Scale. So they still have a lot going on. I really would like to use this Lightning Storm. That would be huge to be able to get rid of all of their spell and trap cards right now, but I have a monster in play. Whatever am I to do? Well, I've actually got more than enough options here to be able to get my monster off the board and play Lightning Storm. So here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to use Kagari to grab back that Multirole I sent. Again, I've already got an Engage in hand, and I could grab, I guess, grabbed another one and then grabbed a Multirole, which actually would have been better because it would have put another spell in my grave. So, yeah, now that I think about it, I really should have just done that. But ultimately, my goal was to get Multirole in order to make sure I was able to recycle some of my spells. So now I get to just search up the Roze with the Reinforcement of the Army after going into Kaina. I'm going into Kaina because I just want to, like, actually, you know, there really wasn't, no, sorry, I had to summon a new Sky Striker Ace. There was a reason I had to summon Kaina. I had to summon a new Sky Striker Ace so that Roze could be special summoned by her own effect, but I didn't want to go into Shizuku, because there's a chance maybe I might go into Shizuku later this turn. I might potentially engage for, like, a Hornet Drones or something. And Kaina, I don't really foresee needing to use it for really any reason. It's kind of like the filler Sky Striker Ace, so that's the one I'm going to summon. And then I'm going to link those two away for Zeke. Zeke can banish any card, or any face-up monster, sorry, when it's summoned, so I'm going to have it banish itself, and now I can throw out the Lightning Storm and get rid of my opponent's back row. So it was a little bit convoluted, but there were actually multiple ways. I could have, as I insinuated earlier, also searched Engage and gotten a Hornet drones, and that plus the Sky Striker Link monster would have gotten me what I needed to as well. Alright, so yeah, here I'm going to use the Mobilize to send the Linkage just to get a third spell in my graveyard. That's why I did that, if you're wondering. And then I'll just set up these 2 cards and pass, and then I'll set the Engage back on my board before ending my turn. So, yeah, I mean, my opponent, you know, I mean, I don't really have, like, much of a board to speak of as far as, like, monsters go. I do have that Zeke coming back on my next turn, which I can link away for, like, a Hayate or something, but... you know, my opponent's only got 1, soon to be 2 cards in hand once they draw for turn, and I've got a Widow Anchor plus a Call by the Grave, which with only 2 cards should probably, hopefully, be enough to stop them. And sure enough, they just don't have any plays whatsoever. Now, during my end phase, Zeke is going to come back. It will be my main monster zone, so I do need to get rid of it, of course, before I can flip up this Engage, but that's pretty easy to do. Like I said, I'm just going to link the Zeke away for a Hayate. Now I get Engage. And now I can actually get the Linkage and OTK my opponent because they're at 6,500. I may not have the Raye, but that just means I'm missing out on 1,500 damage, which I've already done. So I've already got Roze engraved, so I'll just send the Raye to the graveyard. That'll let me go for Kagari. And then, you know, from here we're just doing the OTK. We're using Kagari to grab Linkage back, attacking, and then using Linkage to send the Kagari off for Shizuku before smacking it for lethal. So yeah, that duel, I did not think as soon as the Secret Village, as soon as the Secret Village came down, I did not think I was going to be able to, like, play out of this one at all, until I saw the Jackal come down in defense mode again. That was crucial. If my opponent had summoned Jackal King in attack mode, yeah, I don't think I would have had any chance of winning that duel. So, yeah, there's that game. Just want to show that one off because I don't know any other game in my life I'll play as Sky Striker where my opponent successfully resolves a Secret Village and I actually end up winning. So I had to get that one in. Now let's go and take a look at the next game here. Alright, so this time we're going to be playing up against Nurseburn. I'm not really showing this game off so much for... well, I guess there is actually a funny bit of back and forth to this, but I'm mainly showing this game off to show off that OTK I was talking about. Because I've had some people in the comments ask, or I've seen some people asking as well, just like, hey, how do you pull off that OTK you always talk about in Sky Strikers now? It's pretty simple. All you need to open with is Raye and Linkage, and if your opponent does need to have a clear board, so no monsters in play, but if they have no monsters in play and you have Raye plus Linkage, that is an OTK. But our opponent's going to be taking their turn first here. So yeah, I still had Desires, and I was like, okay, this is probably Sword Soul, until I noticed, like, the small extra deck, and then, of course, you know, once Nurse came down, it's like, oh, never mind, this is Nurseburn. Nurseburn, for those who are unfamiliar, the idea is that you play enough cards to heal your opponent for 8,000, but while Nurse is in play, of course, it's actually going to do 8,000 points of damage, or if you have multiple upstarts, it's even less than that, so... Yeah, them only using Mount to put back 1 card is definitely not a good sign for me either. And then the fact that they follow up with card demise is also equally as scary. So I was pretty convinced I was just going to lose right here. Especially when they flip a bad reaction to Samochi. You know, that's kind of like, this is the continuous trap version of Nurse's effect. So, like, even if I'd had, like, the Infinite Impermanence, for example, you know, they still would have had it. But then they actually flip up this card called Try and Guess, which is one of their main ways of doing quote-unquote burn damage. It actually heals players, but of course, again, while these are in play, it's burns. So they're going to start by calling Synchro Monster, which is an interesting call. I guess they're anticipating that maybe between Sword Soul being, of course, a thing, and the fact that a lot of Math Mechs are playing Final Sigma, I guess Synchro is probably the best thing to blind call here. So they're also going to flip at Paths of Destiny, which basically this card, while Nurse or Samochi's in play, just reads take 2,000 damage. Sometimes your opponent takes 2,000 as well, but that isn't, you know, it's burns, so. And then they have a Trap Trick as well. And fortunately, actually for me, they end up using their Trap Trick on a Try and Guess. Was there not, like... There's, like, much better cards I feel like they could have used the Trap Trick on, but they end up going for a Try and Guess here. So, and, you know, of course, the funny thing about them calling Synchros is that I, of course, am playing 0 Synchro monsters in my extra deck. It is all links, so... Yeah, these coin flips don't matter. I'm just going to take 2,000. That's the important part. And then try and guess. I guess it doesn't show it in the replay, but the card they revealed from their extra deck was Link Gardna, or Secure Gardna, the Link 1 monster. So they started by calling Synchro, which again, I guess makes sense. It hedges up against Sword Soul and most Math Mech. And the second time you notice they called Xyz, I think they were once again hedging against Math Mech. Funny thing is, if they had called Link the first time, then yeah, they would have easily gotten me, as that would have been enough damage. But no, they didn't, so I actually managed to live. I'm going to start off with the Lightning Storm here just to get rid of their back row. And then I'm going to go for the Raye over the Nurse here. Now, I know I said before you need a clear field. I don't in this case because my opponent took 2,000 damage from their own Paths of Destiny. But if this were the standard OTK and the opponent had 8,000 life points with no monster on board, you'd simply attack directly instead of attacking their monster with Raye here. So the idea is you attack with Raye. Now you use Raye's effect to go into Hayate. That'll deal another 1,500. So again, assuming they have no monsters and we started at 8,000, you know, we have 15 plus 15. That's going to be 3,000 total damage so far. Now, this is actually important. With the Hayate, you do have to send the Roze to the graveyard specifically. That's because Linkage is going to give a 1,000-point attack boost to the monster that we summon if we have a light and dark Sky Striker ace on the field and or in the graveyard. So in the graveyard, we of course want the Roze and the Raye. So now that we've set all that up, we'll send the Hayate away for a Kagari. Kagari is going to gain extra 1,000 attack points due to the Linkage effect, and then of course however many attack points she gains off of her own effect as well. Kagari also, when summoned, will allow us to grab the Linkage back to our hand. Linkage, if you scroll through this card's text, you will not actually find the words once per turn. So yeah, you can actually use this card multiple times in a turn. Now we smack our opponent directly with the Kagari. So, you know, even assuming we had 0 spells in our graveyard, that would be 2,500 damage. So 15 plus 15 is 3,000, plus 25 is 55. Now we activate the Linkage once again, sending Kagari for any other Sky Striker ace. I usually just grab Shizuku, and that's going to get boosted to 2,500. So we dealt 5,500 damage up to this point, plus 25 is going to be exactly 8,000. And they didn't even take the last direct attack. Why even bother surrendering at that point? But yeah, so I wanted to show that game just because the opponent whiffing their own burn off of Try and Guess 2 times was pretty funny. But moreover, that was a good demonstration as well of how to pull off that OTK. Just wanted to review that with you all once again. So there's that duel. Let's go and take a look at the next one here. Alright, so for this one, we're going to be playing up against @Ignister. They are running the Math Mech package here, which is, you know, to be expected. We actually showed that variant of the deck off in a video here as well. You can take a look at that from last season there, our Math Mech @Ignister video. We are of course going second, and we opened Valor, Maxi, and Ash Blossom. So a nice little trifecta there of, you know, disruption. Gonna of course fire off the Maxi as soon as the @Ignister monster comes out, but they've got an Ash Blossom, so that's going to stop that, but we can still pretty easily stop them. Basically, here's the idea that I'm thinking here, and the order I want to activate these disruptions in this particular matchup here. So, against @Ignister, of course, they always start with the Link 1 Dark Infant, so as soon as they normal summon any @Ignister monster, I want to throw out the Maxi. Now here they got Ash Blossomed, but whatever, that's fine. Now the Dark Infant is going to try to search for an Ignister Island. That I'm going to use my Ash Blossom to negate, as the Ignister Island is very important for the opponent to have in order to make their plays. However, they often run 3 copies, at least 2, but sometimes 3 copies of it. So there's a decent chance they might already have it in hand anyway. In that case, if my opponent had an Ignister Island in hand and was able to continue their plays, then I would wait on this effect Valor until they summon Dark Templar @Ignister. They need that effect to resolve very, very badly in order to finish their play, and by that point in the combo, they've already used up a lot of their extra deck and decently likely won't have a whole lot of resources for follow-up turns. So those are the different choke points for @Ignister and what I like to use them. But here, our opponent didn't have an Ignister Island, so we didn't have to use Valor and wait or anything like that. This hand is, as far as, like, you know, gas goes, it's kind of meh, honestly. The second Raye draw made it pretty meh. Raye plus Widow Anchor is, of course, you know, a very good pair of cards to have, but definitely did not need a second Raye there, of course. Engage, as always, would be, like, the best card you can draw in this deck. Multirole would have been nice as well, but you know, again, our hand is fine, so I don't really feel the need to complain too much about it. Alright, going to, of course, set up the engage with the Shizuku and Kagari, or not Shizuku, Hayate and Kagari. Here I'm going to activate Multirole and just set the Widow Anchor. Because I don't have a whole lot of resources to kind of play with in my hand here, I want to make sure that I'm able to reuse this Widow Anchor if I need to. And I decided to grab the Linkage here because I felt like it was decently likely I'd be able to use it to try to go for lethal on my opponent's turn. And so here they've got an I Meet You for the Achichi at Ignister, which are going to run out in normal summon. I'm going to use the Widow Anchor on it. I'll once again hold back this Veiler, but that's enough to get them to concede that last monster in a gate. But yeah, even if my opponent had not conceded there, we were still set up very nicely. You know, we could have just reset the Widow Anchor with the Multirole, or even, I think we could have even set the Engage with the Multirole as well, which would have actually been even better. Yeah, we could have set the Engage too, so had an Engage for our next turn, had a draw, but of course we also had Raye plus Linkage in our hand, so with our opponent, all they would have had is an Achichi, so it shouldn't have been too hard to find lethal. And even if they, you know, had you know, plays beyond getting Widow Anchored there, we still had the Effect Veiler for the Dark Templar. Although I guess at that point in the game, we would more want to use that on like a Splash Mage to prevent us from getting like Update Jammer access code OTK. So there's that game. We've got one more left to take a look at. Let's jump straight into it. And this last duel is going to be against Labyrinth. They are playing Eradicator Epidemic, so we do have to be mindful of that. And trying to keep their big 2000 attack plus monsters off the board, if at all possible. So this is rarely a matchup where I think I would actually elect to go first if I knew I was specifically playing against Labyrinth. Even though Sky Striker is very much a going second deck, because Labyrinth is like so much of a going first deck that I think it's worth losing out on the OTK potential just to take the first turn from them. So now, thankfully for me, they actually didn't have anything to follow up the Imperm on the Ariana. The Ariana, of course, looking to add the Labyrinth Welcome here, which is, you know, of course, the key card for the deck. So going to start off with an Engage. Opponent's got an Ash Blossom, but I've got another, excuse me, I've got another Engage, so I'm not really concerned about it. And here I'm actually wondering, yeah, because I've used to Engage and have a Widow Anchor, or I mean a Horde of Drones, I can actually use this Widow Anchor here, potentially make use of it to steal this Ariana and deal some good damage. Yeah, grabbing the Linkage. The problem with Linkage, though, is I'm going to have to... Let me just think for a second. Oh, wow, I guess we just end up summoning the Raye and then just smacking our opponent. Yeah, because I was trying to figure out, like, if there was any way I could do lethal on this turn with the Linkage. I'm just trying to think. If I had used... So, use Widow Anchor, steal Ariana. If I had linked Kagari and Ariana for Zeke... How much was my opponent at the start of this turn? I mean, they would have been at 8,000, right? Yeah, 8,000. So, yeah, no, that wouldn't have been enough. We would have been 1,500 points short. Because we wouldn't have had Raye to battle with. So, yeah, I don't think there's any way I could have done lethal there. I don't think so, but I could be wrong. I'm always open to the possibility of being wrong. Yeah, I'm not going to bother using Zeke's Banish effect on itself here. I could, in theory, like, there is the idea that maybe I did want to do that in case I wanted to use this Linkage on my opponent's turn, but they end up getting a monster. They end up getting the Kagari out of my, or not the Kagari, they end up getting the Shizuku out of my main monster zone anyway. Now, I am going to summon the Raye in defense mode, so now my main monster zone is occupied again, but my opponent just kind of passed without really doing much, and I suspected that was probably going to be the case because their turn 1 was so subpar. It's not only that their turn 1 was subpar, but they also didn't have a whole lot of cards in hand or ways to generate more searches / advantage. So in situations like that where the opponent has already demonstrated their hand is not great and they don't have any form of catch-up, and again, in the form of like more draws or searches, I'm totally fine making like slightly riskier plays. Just because I'm, you know, more reasonably certain it'll pay off. Like here, I'm like, I can probably just turn Raye to attack mode and end the duel. And sure enough, that is going to end up being the case here. So, GG's to our opponents. And thank you all for watching these games. Now let's go ahead and move on to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.